Hello, fans of A Place to Call Home. Thank you for waiting. I know we're a few minutes later than we said. My name is Jenny Baird and I play Regina Bly on A Place to Call Home. And I'm really excited to be talking with you guys and reaching out to the American audience on Acorn TV. And I know you guys have sent some questions in, so we're gonna answer them.
Thank you so much for being here. We got a lot of good responses. Obviously, Regina is quite an amazing character. People really wanted to grill you about some of Regina's aspects. So before we get started on A Place to Call Home, though, we did have a lot of people ask questions about your background and some of your other work. So we'll start with Vivian, who asked whether you always wanted to be an actress and what you were doing before you were able to do this full time.
Well, Vivian, yes, it's true. I did always want to be an actress. I think even when I was 11 and I auditioned to be a cave woman, and I didn't know it was going to be my calling or not. And plus, my parents were very practical, and we live in Australia, and our industry is small, so they said, get a degree in case you've got something to fall back on. So I did get a degree, but right before I was about to graduate, I auditioned for all the drama schools in Australia, and I got into WAPA. And so that really set me on the path. Our system back home really supports graduates. There are a lot of acting schools back home, but WAPA is one of the largest ones, along with NIDA. And if you do go to WAPA and you graduate, you are very supported by the industry, and you can then have a career as a professional actor. And I have been acting since then.
Great. What actors do you admire most, and would you like to tell us a little bit of actors or actresses that you were inspired by to get into the industry?
Well, my hero, of course, is Meryl Streep.
Of course.
I've loved her forever. Out of Africa, I think I watched as a kid. And she's such an incredible performer. She has such control over her instrument. And that's really what we aspire to. I mean, her performances are so aspirational. I can just watch her work a monologue, and she has easy access to all her emotions, which is also what we want. It's one of those double-edged swords. Being an actor it's a tough business, but you also need to be able to feel vulnerable and fragile. And Meryl Streep really has that in spades. You really see deep inside her.
So we may already have our answer to the follow-up. With whom would you like to work with?
Well, of course, Meryl Streep, Susan Sarandon, Jessica Lange. What I love about my career is that it's one of those rare jobs that you only get better as you age. Thank goodness I'm not a fighter pilot. And I can feel it. I feel the depth. I feel as I age, I feel all my experiences, they all trickle down and inform your performance, because, it is a personal thing when you're performing. You always do bring parts of yourself, to the stage or to the screen when you are performing. So I had my two kids, and I often would reflect when I was playing Regina that a lot of the depth of emotion I got from having those children really did help me with my work on A Place to Call Home.
Great. One of our fans says that they saw you appear on another Acorn TV series called The Heart Guy, which is also known as Dr. Doctor in Australia. And so how was it being on a contemporary series while you're in the midst of filming a period drama?
Completely bizarre. Discombobulating completely. I remember because I was filming both at the same time. So I was, shooting in Camden, and then I would get a little plane and fly to Mudgee and put on these contemporary clothes and go onto this set. And it was hard. I mean, I do take my hat off to actors that play more than one character at a time. And Regina, when you guys get to the episodes that I was filming when I did Dr. Doctor, you'll understand even more why I found it so difficult, because I was in a very kind of deep place on A Place to Call Home, and I really had to dredge myself up out and then go and play a Danish person whose friend had been stuck in a hay baler and couldn't speak English. Yeah. But it all came together in the end, so that was good.
I imagine the production itself is quite different because you've been around this other cast for years, and now you're on a new set.
It's true. I came back from shooting Dr. Doctor, and I came back to the set of A Place to Call Home, and everybody was together, and I was like, my family. I'm home. It was like putting on a pair of Ugg boots because, I've been on that show for 5 years. And my youngest child was a tiny baby when I started, and he'll be 6 next year. So, yeah, they have become like a family.
Anne would like to know, what's a surprising fact about you or any hidden talents you'd like to share?
Well, usually I say something else to this question, but since being based in America and having a KitchenAid mixer, I've oddly become obsessed with making bread, much to my husband's chagrin. My father is a scientist, and so there's a real scientist in me, and there's something about yeast and temperature and bread making and letting things rise in the fridge that I've gone a bit overboard. I think it'll be good when I go back to Australia because I won't have that mixer available with the dough hook. And I can get really quite obsessive with cooking. I don't know why. It's like some people garden, some people paint, and I tend to just cook and cook. So we just had Thanksgiving here in America, and I brined my turkey overnight, which is what I always do. And then I've had to make turkey stock, and then I had to make risotto. At one point, my husband's like, "Would you stop? Stop with the cooking." Anyway, that's all done. I've frozen my turkey stock for when I come back.
So one more question before we get into Regina.
Yep.
If you could play any other villain in television or film, anyone who's come before you, literature, pop culture, is there anyone that you would like to have sink your teeth into?
This was a hard question when I read it because my instinctual response was, Regina is amazing. If you want to call her a villain, she's an amazing role because, especially if you're watching season 5, you'll see that she transformed. Place to call home, and I'm really excited. Oh, that's me talking. Anyway, modern technology. Yeah, so it's a hard question because I have felt so fulfilled playing Regina, and yes, I do love watching villains in film and television, but I don't know. I don't know how much better it can be, especially giving me such a great radical about turn from season to season, which is what has happened between season 4 and season 5.
Great. So it's probably no surprise. A lot of the questions and comments had to do with how much our fans love to hate you.
Why do you hate me so much, you guys? It's really not fair. Think about my feelings. No, I have to be honest. People are like, "Are you okay with the fact that people hate you?" And I'm like, "Yes, because it's my job. And if they didn't hate me, I wouldn't be doing my job."
So Jennifer asks, what do you find redeeming about Regina and admire most about her? Is there something in her character that you identified with?
Interestingly enough, Regina has easy access to her vulnerable self and to her kind of perhaps the weaker parts of her personality, which a lot of us really try and hide in real life. Regina is a bit like, I feel jealous, I'm going to do this. I feel angry, I'm going to do this. I feel, so that's what's interesting about her to play, is that she really doesn't tamp down on her emotion very much, and she has impulse control problems. So, whereas we possibly shouldn't become addicted to morphine, we possibly shouldn't shoot people accidentally when we feel panicked. We possibly shouldn't pay people to beat us up so that people feel sorry for us. Yes, all those things we probably shouldn't do. But the wonderful thing about Regina is that she just does those things because they're so close to the surface. She's also heartbroken. I always describe her as like a 15-year-old girl. You should be careful not to wrong a 15-year-old girl. I've had the experience having been one. But her heartbreak is the real human part to her. And if you look back on season 4 and episode 4 of season 4, which was one of those questions, we'll get to it, which is, I can answer it now. It was like, which scene did I find kind of the scariest or the most difficult to film? One of the two I would pick out was in that episode where she's in her red dress and she's taken morphine and she's fallen asleep having had too much whiskey, and George comes in and wakes her up. And she basically unleashes on him and says, "You used me, and I've always loved you." And her heart was just so close to the surface there, and her vulnerability was so apparent. And that's what I like about her. I know there's not a lot for other people to like about her, but for me, that's what I feel sorry for her.
There's a little bit of a redemption you've seen, on social media with the hashtag Regina Misunderstood. So there is.
She's always been misunderstood.
Some conversation about that. Has playing Regina changed you personally or taught you anything?
Look, the difficult parts of Regina, I mean, the heinous parts of her and what she represents in the story, which is, the anti-Semitic side of her, the bigoted side. You can look at that as an actor and you can say, I'm uncomfortable to play that. But you can also recognize that that needs to be represented in order to bring the issues in front of your audience. So I need to show the audience that side of Australia, that prejudice, because the show is really a lot about prejudices in the 50s in Australia, and it's a good thing for us to reflect upon, because I don't really think we're beyond a lot of prejudices today. And that's really what's profound about the show, is that it's like, oh yes, it's a period piece, it's back in the 50s, but how far have we come in terms of who we discriminate against? So, Regina is a necessary evil, and that she needs to represent the darker sides and the darker issues that the show deals with.
Is there anything specific you need to do to sort of prepare yourself to get into that role and to sort of represent this darkness that?
Look, it's a process, and a lot about, for me as an actor and Regina, is we have a long prep time every day getting ready. We have a lot of time in hair and makeup and a lot of time in costume, and we wear a lot of kind of period undergarments. And that 2-hour period before I step onto set is really part of my transformation into Regina. I mean, once I'm wearing her shoes, and I've spoken about my shoes a lot, and I'm wearing the costume and I've got the hair and the face, I become her really physically, so there are 2 ways to act. Actors have 2 kind of methods, outside in or inside out. And I think I probably employ both. I do the internal work, but also the external factors really assist in playing Regina and helping me turn into Regina.
Well, you're obviously fully embodying that, because we did have someone say that you stress me out. So you're affecting people. So,
yeah. That's my resting face. My natural resting face must do that to people a lot.
Are there any other characters on A Place to Call Home besides Regina that you would like to have played?
Probably Sarah, because she's been my Luke Skywalker to Darth Vader, and she's the opposite side of the coin, and so that's the way you would like. It would be great to kind of walk around in her shoes for a bit, just because it would be different. But that's also relates to what I said earlier about season 5. I kind of got to flip the coin over in season 5, certainly in the episodes that have gone to air. Really, I mean, when I started episode 1, I said to the director, I think we're dealing with somebody who's been quite broken, and who all that spirit and all that hatred, and it's really been squashed quite utterly. And I think, I said, please don't worry, because she'll appear quite blank. But, if you've been in an institution in the 50s, it's akin to torture, some of those mental patient treatments.
Right. I'm going to change things up a little bit after that, really poignant answer. Are there any fun anecdotes from the set, from behind the scenes, that you can share? Any fun stories?
Yes, I think this is actually online. I think they asked me back in Australia one of my favourite scenes to film, and what I love playing Regina is that she gets to smash lots of stuff. She gets to do a lot of stuff, like take a lot of drugs, shoot people, get beaten up, break things, smash stuff. Like, it's really fun. And so when they came to me, I had a scene where I had to kind of smash stuff off a table in anger. And they were like, well, we've only got 5 or 6 of these setups, so you've got to do it in 6 takes. And I did it in 1 take, and I was like on fire. And they were like, thank you, yep, we got it. And I was like, that's not fair. That's not fair. You've got 5 repeats. Come on, let's do it again. But they wouldn't let me. I think they were just so relieved that yeah. And I've thrown vases twice. I got to pick up another vase in another episode and just hurl it against a wall and watch it smash. And then the flip of that was in season 5. People threw a lot of stuff. Has that one gone to air? I think it might have.
Season 5 has started.
No, meaning that ep in season 5. There's an episode where there's lots of broken stuff, and it feels kind of poetic because Regina kneels down to sweep up lots of shards and gets cut. It's a bit like full circle.
Well, that leads us to our next question, where Stan asked, "Do you and the cast ever get to give input to Bevan Lee on storylines or dialogue?" Or ask for another take to smash things? How much of the feedback do you get to give on story?
Well, I don't know. I did have. I'm sure you remember Mad Men, where Betty dyes her hair dark and went brunette, which was very kind of shocking, visually shocking. And so I would always joke with Bevan because I'm naturally. I'm generally always blonde in life, and my husband would be like, "Wouldn't it be great if they could, give you blonde hair?" And so I'd always joke with Bevan, and when you see me in season 5, you'll see that I have a completely different hair colour.
There are some changes.
So I don't know whether it was just sowing the seeds to Bevan or not, but it was, it was a great creative move.
Let's see. So when you go out into public in Australia, do fans respond negatively to you? Does anyone walk up and tell you how much they dislike Regina?
They hate me. Oddly, I don't think I don't get recognised much, or well, perhaps maybe that's actually an answer to your question. I think people are just afraid to go up to me, or they kind of look at me and they're like, "Why do I feel this way about this person?" Because I look so different compared to how I am on the show that it's not easy to put the two together, especially with long blonde hair and then Regina having kind of super dark. Right. And also the look, the styling is so transformative that when I'm in the supermarket walking down the aisles, you don't really leap to that highly coiffed 50s image very easily. So yeah, I do. I'm either just completely blissfully ignorant, and maybe people are recognizing me and just too afraid to say anything, or maybe I just am incognito.
So we have touched on this a bit, but if you could expand on this, more specific question. As A Place to Call Home is well known for covering social issues throughout all of the seasons. There's been a number of issues that they've covered. Did any of these storylines particularly resonate with you?
Carolyn deals a lot with the feminist question in season 5, which is important because, in the 50s, women really couldn't do anything compared to what men were doing. And I think we've had a recent episode where there was a Fate, a CWA run Fate, and she has a big speech about how, women slave away and the men just kind of show up and sell a few raffle tickets and then go off to the pub and pat themselves on the back. So that's been an interesting issue that the show has raised. The issue of homosexuality has also been a really fundamental one. Being, even in the 50s, it was illegal. So very interesting also to do with our marriage equality vote that has just happened in Australia. Oddly, you see the show often has kind of echoes, that go on into the future. So
right, these sort of timely topics that
you're
covering.
That but
we're still talking about today.
Yeah, Australians were very prejudiced back in the 50s, and people tend to romanticize the past. And I think our show, while it does give a lot of romance and nostalgia, it also holds a mirror up and to say, hey, it wasn't all sunshine and roses back then. And it's really important that we don't rewrite history in that way and kind of sweep it all under the table.
Right. So thinking about the future of the show, which we don't know how far we're going to go. Hopefully it just keeps going and going. But what do you hope is in store for Regina's future?
Well, that would be telling.
We probably can't.
No, I probably can't. All I can probably say is that it's a surprise. It's a real surprise. And I don't know if anyone will see it coming.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm not going to answer that question. You were like, oh, I know. I'll just get her to reveal what's coming.
So we do have one final question. Thank you again for being here, for doing this. You know, the fans are so excited to have you answer these questions and sort of see behind Regina and see, you know, what's Jenny like? How's she so different?
Probably not like Regina.
Probably not.
Yeah. The people always say to me, oh, you're so nice in real life. I'm like, well, you think?
I will say there's been quite a few comments saying you seem so much nicer.
It's like, well, you would hope, wouldn't you? It would be terrible if they're like, you're exactly like Regina in real life.
And definitely some people who weren't quite sure about your character at first, but have some sort of sympathy with what the character's gone through.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. Yes, very complicated.
Right. So I'm going to end with this and what it is you think about A Place to Call Home that makes it so special, how it has resonated. And, you know, we're 5 seasons in and it continues to be such a phenomenon.
It does. And I think it surprised all of us, really. I mean, I talked to Noni and I talked to Marta and we're all a bit like, wow, it's really going crazy. It's going all over the world. Who would have thought that, you know, this little town, Inverness in rural Australia in the 50s would have held interest for people, you know, in the far-flung reaches of our planet. But the show, all the it's really about the characters, I think, largely. I think they're, aside from the fact that we've gotten to know them so well over 5 seasons, I think there are archetypes in there that we can really relate to. I think it's a universal story. You know, it's about people who love and lose and strive and people who want to reinvent themselves and families and how family structures can support us and kind of bring us great turmoil. And there are universal themes that we all respond to, be that, you know, if we're in Iceland or if we're in New Zealand or if we're in the UK. And speaking of the UK, it would be good if we didn't edit out some of Regina's scenes on the BBC. Unfortunately, that affects me most because Regina happens to do the most non-G-rated things on A Place to Call Home. So, you know, if I could put a plea out to the UK, it would be great if we could really show A Place to Call Home without some of that editing. So anyway, shall I say goodbye now? Thank you so much. I so am appreciative of all the fans of this show because without you, we wouldn't be here and you make us exist. So thank you and keep watching, and I'm interested to see what you think of the end of this season.